This video predicts every first-round matchup of 2022's NBA playoffs. Fred Van Vleet had 32 points, 6 boards, and 7 dimes on 11 for 22 field goals made, including 5 threes in his one and only regular season matchup against the team he's about to see in a few days, the Philadelphia 76ers. The Golden State Warriors are 16-0 all-time in playoff games where all three of Steph, Draymond, and Klay have collectively suited up in, making Curry's return that much more important. The Chicago Bulls and Dallas Mavericks will have tougher times than those teams with key injuries to their top players. Chicago's missing a top backcourt defender and passer in Lonzo Ball, and have lost all 4 regular season games to their upcoming playoff opponent, while the Dallas Mavericks simply got unlucky and lost Luka Doncic in Game 82. You're about to see a full breakdown of each Round 1 series and a clear-cut pick for who'll come out on top. Right before that, just 9.6% of you watching right now are subscribed, so if you haven't already, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also leave a thumbs up, it takes a few seconds and makes a massive difference. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at DFlowHoops and I'll give you a follow back. Link is down below in the description for those 2 platforms. Despite their 4 best players in Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry, and Bam Adebayo missing a combined 82 games, the Dade County Bullies secured the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. While Miami faced some well-documented chemistry issues, they actually finished the season strong after Spoelstra's argument with Jimmy, winning 6 of their last 7 regular season games. There was even some good vibes coming out of the locker room, with Max Strus calling Kyle Lowry the best point guard in the league. On the other side, for Atlanta, they took 2 play-in games to advance to the first round as the #8 seed, but it came at a cost, as they lost starting center Clint Capella after he pulled down Evan Mobley onto his leg. Displaying his magic in the second half against Cleveland, Trae Young showed why he became only the 2nd player ever, and the first since Tiny Archibald in 1973, to lead the NBA in both total points and assists. We saw how Trae Young carried the ATL 2 wins from the finals last year, and one of the game's best point guards isn't about to go down easy. If Trae's pick-and-roll partner John Collins comes back, I could see Atlanta pushing Miami to 6 games. Having said that, Heat in 6. The Boston Celtics against the Brooklyn Nets. In a rematch of their battle from last year's first round, this time with Boston owning home court advantage, Jason Tatum's looking for revenge on Kevin Durant, and this time, he's got a healthy Jaylen Brown next to him. Since trading for Derek White at the deadline, Boston's gone 20-6, resembling top Eastern Conference contenders. The biggest concern for Brooklyn facing the #1 defense in the NBA is who's going to come through for you outside of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. In terms of the quote-unquote optimism of Ben Simmons returning, I'm not sure if him rejoining after not having played in about a year is a positive, especially considering how well Bruce Brown's playing right now, with his ability to catch and shoot 3-pointers, find his teammates after setting a screen, or hit floaters in the lane. Simmons returning means Brown would move back to the bench, and we also can't forget about how Ben's lack of a 3-point shot hurts your spacing. Overall, Boston's rolling, and there's just too many concerns for the 7th-seeded Nets. I think the Brooklyn Nets are for sure going to have their moments, but I'm taking the hard-nosed Celtics to win this series in 6 games. The Milwaukee Bucks against the Chicago Bulls. While Milwaukee beat Chicago all 4 times in the regular season, 2 of those games were within 6 points, one of which took place just over a month ago on March 4th. The Greek Freak just posted another historically great season as he averaged 29.9 points, 11.6 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 1.4 blocks, and 1.1 steals, while shooting 55.3% from the field. Giannis also made over 41% of his shots from 3 to 10 feet, 10 to 16 feet, and 16 feet to the 3-point line. The approach for defenses is of course still to cut off the paint and force him to take outside shots, but Giannis is now more lethal than ever before around the perimeter, which makes him a whole new animal to defend. That means the Paul, Patrick Williams, Derrick Jones, and Troy Brown Jr., along with Javonte Green, are going to have their hands full. According to NBA.com, Milwaukee outscored opponents by 8 points per 100 possessions with Antetokounmpo on the floor, and were also incredibly elite when the big 3 of the Freak, Cash Money Middleton, and Holiday took the court together. Those 3 played 47 games together this year. The Bucks went 37-10 in those games and racked up an 11.1 net rating in their 783 minutes sharing the floor. Conversely, The Bulls' trio of DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic was a minus 1.1 in 1,206 minutes. Chicago's core had an extremely entertaining start to the year. Their lack of defense ultimately caught up to them, but that doesn't mean there aren't still bright spots for the Chicago team. 20-year-old Patty Williams still has a long way to go in his development, but the sophomore just returned after suffering torn ligaments on his left wrist, an injury that kept him out 4 to 6 months, and he's played fairly well since his return. The month of April saw Patrick average 17 points, 5 rebounds, and a block on 54% shooting from the field, 62% shooting from 3, and 80% from the charity stripe. Despite Chi-Town's second half of the year collapse, the progression of Patty should give Bulls fans hope heading into the future. I have the Bucks winning this series in 5 games, and let's hope GM Mark Eversley can acquire more defensive options, whether it's through the draft, free agency, or via trade. The Toronto Raptors against the Philadelphia 76ers. While 2022's first-time All-Star for the Six and Rockford's finest Fred Van Vleet has been dealing with a knee injury, which will have surgery on this offseason, thankfully, if you're a Toronto fan like myself, Coach Nick Nurse gave an update on his point guard Friday morning, saying, quote, "He's looked really good this week, he's put in some good tough days this week, and looks great, he's ready." From the 76ers perspective, while James Harden said in an interview that he felt no pressure, in my eyes, he's a player with a lot to prove, taking into account his lack of a championship ring. Harden's legacy is on the line here, and entering a playoff run where he's going to need to be exceptional for Philly to win, I'm sure the Beard's feeling at least some pressure after demanding a trade from an organization for a second straight year. I broke down a bit of this series in my Raptor video yesterday, but the X factors, firstly for Philadelphia, is Tyrese Maxey, and secondly for Toronto, is Precious Achiuwa. While the Raptors took 3 of 4 games in the regular season over the 76ers, every game between these two teams has been within 6 points, so as Coach Nick Nurse has said, this is going to be a slugfest. I have Toronto winning in 6 games, but that could be my bias. Philadelphia does have the experience advantage, so you really could go either way here. Moving over to the Western Conference, where the Phoenix Suns will take on the New Orleans Pelicans. You're going to hear people saying the Phoenix Suns have an easy path to the conference finals, with Paul George missing the play-in game against New Orleans. In my opinion, the Pels would have taken that game anyway, and their underrated yet supremely talented offensive big three of Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and Jonas Valanciunas has a chance to challenge the powerhouse team from the Valley in at least a few games. You can't forget about a scrappy fan favorite hustle guy who can make an impact in front of the Big Easy crowd, like Jose Grand Theft Alvarado. Ultimately, I expect the point guard CP3, the MVP caliber D-Book, and a top DPOY contender in Mikal Bridges to take care of business, but not before the hungry Pels come out with a game or two. Phoenix in 5. The Memphis Grizzlies against the Minnesota Timberwolves. This young battle features 2 of our game's best up-and-coming stars in Ja Morant and Anthony Edwards, putting their young legacies temporarily on the line during a head-to-head thriller. It'll also be a battle of the stretch big men in Jaren Jackson Jr., matching up against the greatest shooting big of all time in Karl Anthony Towns. Of course, respect is shared between these two rising teams, but that's buried well below a healthy hatred for one another, which has been the propellant for the Western Conference's fastest-growing rivalry. It all started in May of last year, when Anthony Edwards dropped 42 points in a Wolves comeback effort, which ultimately came up short against the Grizzlies, with Ja Morant's 37-point and 10-assist effort. This year, with the Wolves looking to finally become a winning ball club, an early season matchup in Memphis saw Minnesota thoroughly dominate the Grizzlies in the third quarter, outscoring them 32-21 to carry an 11-point cushion into the fourth quarter, but Memphis would come back and eventually win in overtime, with Triple J taking the game over. Several weeks after that, when the Grizzlies touched down in Minneapolis, Edwards and the Wolves were riding a 2-game winning streak and were clearly out for revenge, blitzing Memphis by winning the first quarter 40-23 behind Ant's 17 points on 6 for 6 shooting, and never looked back. Wolves head coach Chris Finch's game plan completely neutralized Morant and Jackson Jr., who combined for 23 points on 5 for 8 shooting. In the playoffs, despite Memphis being the much higher-seeded team, considering the Wolves and Grizz split the season series, I see this series going back and forth. It's tough to bet against this 56-win Memphis team, whose defensive rating is significantly higher ranked than their opponent, Memphis ranks number 6 in that area, while Minnesota ranks down at number 13. Having said that, deloading Cat and Ant is a damn scary big three, so this could really go either way. Given the somewhat even personnel, this probably comes down to coaching, and while Chris Finch is good, Taylor Jenkins is a Coach of the Year contender. His adjustments and substitutions have been flawless this season. I have Memphis winning this series in 7 games. The Golden State Warriors against the Denver Nuggets. Undefeated in the postseason with their big three intact, Stephen Curry's going to suit up, given he scrimmaged several times this past week, making it officially scary hour for Denver Nuggets fans. Nikola Jokic just had his second straight generational season. You can see a breakdown of that linked in the top right. While I think the Joker is capable of stealing a game or two from the Bay Area, having said that, here's what this series comes down to. The expectations for Golden State are championship or bust, with Drake betting $1 million on them to get out of the West. In all seriousness, with all Denver's injuries, they're not expected to win a championship whatsoever, and without a healthy Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr., Denver simply doesn't have enough scoring prowess or defense to respond to Golden State's flurry in an expectedly roaring Chase Center. Jokic is the MVP, but Warriors in 5. The Dallas Mavericks against the Utah Jazz. This is one of the hardest series to predict with the Game 82 tragic calf injury to Luka Doncic. According to reports, Doncic could be back for Games 3 and 4, meaning without their best player at home, Dallas would have to get one of those 2 games at American Airlines Center, and the Luka injury may not have too much of an impact. Dallas and Utah split their regular season series 2-2, but the Mavericks won the final 2 games, both being by 8+ points, with the final outing being a 14-point blowout. Expect deadline pickup, the elusive shot creator with long strides in transition and nifty dribble combos in his bag, Spencer Dinwiddie, to average at least 20 points per game in this series and step up in the absence of Luka. If they don't get Doncic back, that makes the Spida and a proven playoff phenom in Donovan Mitchell the most talented player in this series, giving the 5th-seeded Jazz the advantage. Taking into account Dallas still has home court though, won the last 2 games between these 2 teams by a good amount, and also considering Utah showed they couldn't take advantage of the Clippers without Kawhi last year, I'm leaning towards Dallas if Doncic comes back. Give me the Mavericks overcoming adversity and dramatically advancing to round 2, Mavs in 7. But I want to know from your perspective, which series are you most looking forward to, and then give me your prediction for that series. Best answer down below in the comments gets next video shout out. Top 5 commenters by June 21st receive free NBA merchandise of their choosing this summer, so leave your take on today's question to compete in Community Speaks. Today's Speaks winner is Diceman Photography, who says Raps in 6. He made a lot of good points. I think that the Sixers will not have Thibault for at least 2 games, and possibly 3. That's pretty big. Maxey is an X factor. Appreciate every answer. I hope you have a great one. D-Flow signing off.